guys. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 2, Setting Yourself Up for Success. A few of the things we'll discuss today is defining what success means to you, finding your resources. I'm going to talk more about cultural wealth and self-efficacy. You can also think of that as your academic confidence. And then we're going to dive into growth and fixed mindset because I think those are the main keys on what makes a successful college student. On the note, a successful college student, so I want you to think about what that looks like to you. And I want to be real clear that when we say success, success is defined by you and you alone. You are here for, all of the students in this class are here for different goals. Some of us are pursuing a certificate and so that we can get into the workforce or we can accelerate ourselves in a position we're already in. Some of us are here to grab that associate or to transfer to grab that bachelor's, and maybe going a master's or a PhD route is the way for you. For others, maybe it's being able to get the certificate, get in the workforce, and just kill it at our careers. You're going to define what success means to you. You will see some pressure on your grades, and I don't want to minimize that. Grades are important, but they are not the definition of success. You need those grades to keep up that GPA, and especially if you're looking to transfer, then there's a little bit more pressure on your grades. But overall, they are not a measure of success. And even with transfer, applying to a health science program, any of that, we can retake classes because we know grades are not the only measure of success. So I want to make sure that that's clear. And I want you to think about what success means to you, what that looks like for you. As we get into in our future chapters, goals and values, I really want you kind of pinpointing and fleshing out what success means like for you. Real quick, I just want to touch on the different types of college students because I think this is super important to realize. All of your classes are going to have a blend, and you should recognize yourself in some of these bubbles. You might be the traditional student, which is typically our full-time students that come to us right after high school. Maybe you're working full-time and taking classes in the evenings and weekends. We would consider you more of a non-traditional student. It doesn't change anything. It's just kind of how you're identified. In your classes, you'll also meet international students from all over the world. And then our first generation students, and this may apply to you as well. And I just like to emphasize this because as an employee at a college, it's important, and we talk about first generation students a lot, but I don't know that all the students know what that means. First generation just means students who are the first one in their families to pursue and usually complete a degree of some sort, any degree. And why that makes it tricky is because typically first generation students, and I identify as first generation myself, you don't have somebody in your family that's done it before that can navigate financial aid, navigate college applications, navigate course building, finding your courses, finding your textbooks. A lot of that is on you by yourself, and you rely really heavily on your advisor, people you meet, and in your college at ACC, if you go to a 4-year, to kind of help navigate some of those services. And that can be tricky because it's not unusual for colleges to kind of assume students already know things when they don't, and it's kind of a weird gap. So I always like to, if you're feeling like you don't understand, like you feel like you don't belong here, it's probably just because if this is your first time on college, and even if you have a family member that's kind of gone through it, you may still feel this on college because you haven't immediately figured it all out. And I will share a little secret. Most students haven't immediately figured it all out. And we're all trying to survive day to day. So if you have those feelings, please know that it's not you. Everybody belongs here. It is likely just learning this new college culture that has not, you've never had any taste of before. My other soapbox is for students with disabilities. Please, 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 and you can go back and find this information in my syllabus. Please use our Students Accessibility Service office. what this office is it provides accommodations for students with disabilities who may need them, anything from extended testing time to having somebody maybe help take notes with you. If you have ever had accommodations in high school or middle school, it would have been maybe called a 504 plan. Even if you don't think you need them, I always recommend to go ahead and go through the process and get the accommodations in place. You don't have to use them. But what I've seen with students is they think they don't need them. They start taking exams, they're not doing well, realize they did, in fact, need their accommodations. Any point in the semester, you can go and apply for them, and then you can have them for the rest of the semester, but you can't go back to the exams or the coursework you've already taken and rework it with accommodations. They're not a time machine, unfortunately. So please, if it's ever been a thought or consideration for you, please talk to the office and see what options you may have. And then finally, working students, and that includes, students working full time, students working multiple jobs, any other commitment that you have in addition to your college coursework is going to affect a lot of things. And so we want to be thinking about those commitments as we build out study plans, as we build our courses for the next semester, things like that, because you have to have space for working, right? We have to eat. And for any other commitments, maybe you have got kids, maybe you have family members or friends or a person in your life that you're helping take care of or do extra things for. Those are commitments, and those come into play with everything that you're doing here at ACC. So in this course, we will talk a lot about your life, school, work balance, because that's really important, that as we build course schedules, when we do our time management project and we talk about putting things on our calendars and planners, not only including work, but all of those commitments that have to be done, that cannot be negotiated, need to be on there as well so that you can find that balance. All right, this is one of my favorites. This is not in your textbook, so this is only on this lecture, and then there's an article in Google Classroom for you that explains this all a little bit better. But essentially, your social identity is how it's a kind of a combination to me. This is how I'll explain it. We have our personal identities, but we have the identities that we know when we're out in public, how we see ourselves, and then how other people see us. So for example, gender coming up for me, I'm a cis woman, and so I know what that means to me. But when I'm out in the world, there's I've met people who have made assumptions about me, about things that I want in life, like assuming I want a bunch of kids or I want to get my nails done every week, without any context other than they just looked at me and saw my gender identity. So those are the kinds of things that we think about, because that has influence on us. It influences what we're confident about, sometimes how we present ourselves, and it also influences how other people may treat us. And we have to be aware and in some ways be prepared for that. So it's important to realize how our identities make up and how they influence us. It also leads us into our cultural wealth. Cultural wealth are the skills and abilities that you have picked up or learned in a non-academic setting. So things you may have learned from your family, your friend circles, if you go to church or have, ties to, like, maybe you volunteer at a nonprofit, any of those, you're still building skills. And so linguistic capital, for example, if you grew up bilingual, then you definitely have a lot of cultural wealth there, especially if it's a common language such as Spanish. In a Texas area, that's huge. Like, that's huge in the job market, that you can speak Spanish and help customers, students speak to other employees, things like that. Social capital is another good one that we're gonna, and that's one We'll push a lot more in college because that is networking, meeting people in the fields that you're interested in working in. You're going to have faculty that can help you with that. Maybe you'll get an internship. That is all networking, meeting people, so that opportunities may come up and they may throw them your way because you've had that connection. So those are some examples. Please read through the article, so that you can kind of pinpoint things that you can build on. And we will revisit this a little bit with our cultural, I'm sorry, not our cultural, our career exploration project, where you'll be putting together a resume and a cover letter, and you can discuss some of the cultural wealth skills that you bring into that role. All right. And let's talk about self efficacy. You can kind of think this as, because we're in a college setting, academic confidence is another way to kind of put it. But essentially, it's not self-esteem, it's not your overall view of yourself, but it is your confidence level, how you perceive your confidence level on specific tasks. So for example, if you feel like you're not good at writing, that is a low self-efficacy, right? You have low confidence in your writing abilities. And that's going to play a role in how you approach writing assignments, how you approach classes that have a lot of writing involved, and how you feel about those classes, right? And kind of maybe it leads us to procrastinate because we're just trying to put off something that we think we're bad at. And really, self-efficacy and our perceptions on what we feel confident on are related to our viewpoints and our mindsets. Different ways that we build our self-efficacy or our confidence beliefs can be influenced by experiences we've already had. Maybe I've turned in papers and gotten some bad grades or bad feedback, and I was just done with it. Maybe I see somebody next to me that can write a paper in like one draft, turn it in, and get a high grade, and I can't do that. So now I have certain feelings about my ability compared to that person next to me. Maybe somebody told me I was bad at writing. It could have been a teacher, it could have been a family member, a friend. Maybe they just read one thing that I wrote and it was my first draft and they decided I was bad at writing. And now they've told me and now I've agreed with them. And I've now brought that into my self-efficacy and decided I'm bad at writing. Sometimes we imagine ourselves. So maybe I imagine myself building together this beautiful paper, turning it in and getting an F. And so that's kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Now I don't want to write the paper because I've imagined I'm going to do poorly on it. So then I don't put in as much effort because I've already had in my head that I'm going to fail. And then negative moods and negative physical sensations. So maybe again, I've turned in papers, and maybe I got like kind of decent grades, but not the grade that I expected or wanted. And that gave me a negative mood, negative physical sensation with it. Like it made me angry, it made me feel a certain way. And now every time I think about writing, that mood or that feeling comes right back. So, how we increase our self efficacy is addressing our mindset. So, a growth mindset means that we can learn anything, we can focus on the learning. The big one I want to bring attention to is see effort as the key to success. Sometimes we have a tendency to think that if it's hard and I can't easily master it, then I'm not good at it. And it's never that simple. So, for example, with writing, I have an essay to write. Maybe for me, because I can't just verbally vomit a draft and get a good grade. Maybe it means I take more time and I write a little bit each night. Maybe it means I go to the learning lab and work with one or more of the writing tutors there and I build those skills. And it's going to be hard and I'm not going to like doing it, but at the end of it, I'll become a better writer. And maybe one point writing papers is nothing to me. It's easy. It's cake, right? I definitely tried to negotiate in one of my courses. We had to write this big capstone paper and then we had to present it at this public forum. And I tried to negotiate if I didn't do the presentation, but just the paper, like what would I still pass? What would be my grade? And my professor was like, no. Back then, I never would have believed that I would be able to stand up in front of 28 students and teach a class. And I've been teaching now for a while. So it was more about my mindset and my academic confidence to my presentation abilities. And I wasn't focused on practicing and doing more presentations to get more comfortable in front of crowds, to better prepare any of that. That got me, eventually, obviously, I did, but not at that time. And I had a fixed mindset, fixed meaning that it can't be changed, that I'm bad at presenting. I don't like presenting. I'll never present. It was hard. I didn't want to do it. It made me nervous. So I avoided it, right? That's the fixed mindset. The growth mindset was continuing to put myself in spaces where I would have to present, finding resources that would help me present better, and eventually developing those presentation skills. Another way to think about growth mindset, my mother taught me a long time ago. She's big with gardening and planting. A plant will grow to the size of its pot. So it'll grow to a certain height, maybe a certain width, and then it'll kind of just stagnate because the roots have wrapped around the pot in the dirt as far as that they're willing to go. To me, that is a fixed mindset. You're going to grow to the size of your pot, and then you're going to say that pot sized with your talent and your belief. Whereas, growth mindset. It's an empty field, and these flowers can grow as far out and as tall and as wide as they want because there's space to continue to grow and to add and to flourish. And that's what I want you guys to recognize about yourselves. Sometimes it's going to be harder. That's why we have so many resources available for students, because we all have different strengths and weaknesses. We all have things we're better at, and we all have areas we need to develop. And that's what a growth mindset can help you achieve. And so to wrap up chapter 2, mostly I want you to recognize that you have skills based on who you are and where you came from that you're bringing into college already. And those are things you want to kind of identify. That all of us have strengths and weaknesses, but they're all different. So a big part of this course will be helping you kind of assess some of that, and finding tools and ways to develop the areas that we're weaker in. And we'll talk a lot more into that, especially when we get into learning styles in chapter 8. And then recognizing that every single person in this course can be successful, can achieve those goals, and can learn things even when they're hard. And that's what the rest of our semester will really be touching in and diving into. All right. Thank you guys.